Right now on Morning News Now, immigration crackdown. Federal law enforcement agencies are ramping up operations across the country, marking what President Trump has called the beginning of an era of mass deportations. But that policy already being met with pushback abroad. The new threat from the White House after one country temporarily refused to accept deportation flights. Plus, much-needed rain is offering relief after historic and deadly wildfires scorched Southern California. But now as families finally return home, the pounding rain could create a new threat, forcing them to leave again. Also this morning, ceasefire holding steady. A new agreement has been reached to release an Israeli hostage and clear the way for Palestinians to return to northern Gaza. But it comes as President Trump suggests Gaza should be, quote, cleaned out. What we've learned about the deal amid a tenuous peace.
Good morning. Good to have you with us on a Monday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for starting your week with us. Well, this morning, the Trump administration is stepping up its crackdown on undocumented immigrants following a weekend of mass deportations and raids that have swept multiple cities in the United States. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, it's also known as ICE, they said 956 arrests were made on Sunday across the country, the largest number of arrests in a day since the Trump administration took over. That includes places like Atlanta, where the Drug Enforcement Administration has been supporting ICE with its operations.
The White House now says that Colombia agreed to its terms following a sharp escalation in tensions between the two nations. At issue, accepting deportation flights. President Trump threatened to impose tariffs on Colombia and impose visa sanctions on its government officials. That's after the country denied entry to 2 U.S. deportation flights. That prompted the Colombian president to threaten retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. Well, on Sunday, NBC's Gabe Gutierrez spoke with President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, about the dispute with Colombia, normally a very close ally.
The country needs to take back their citizens. I mean, and I think that we got a strong president, President Trump. He made Mexico remain in Mexico. They didn't want to do it. He made El Salvador take back MS-13 members. They didn't want to do it. We got a strong president who's going to demand action. If they don't act, then there'll be consequences.
In a few moments, we'll speak with NBC's Priya Sridhar, who is in El Paso, Texas. But first, let's get to our Homeland Security correspondent, Julia Ainsley. Julia, good morning. So walk us through this dispute between the U.S. and Colombia over these deportation flights. How did it all unfold, and how ultimately was it resolved?
Well, Homan's right in saying that Colombia has been a longtime ally of the United States, especially on these issues. The difference here was it was a U.S. military flight. And so the president of Colombia, the foreign minister, thought that those were inhumane conditions. You've seen the pictures of migrants being walked onto these giant planes. He thought the way that these deportations are being carried out and the military planes made this inhumane, and that by accepting it, he would be condoning that behavior. Now, since, of course, all of those threats over the tariffs, now Colombia has changed course and said that they will now accept U.S. military flights carrying deportees to Colombia. But just to emphasize what a partner Colombia has been, I've been in Colombia where people from ICE, actually, their Homeland Security investigations or kind of the special ops of ICE, are training Colombian National Police to go out and arrest people who have committed crimes with a nexus to the U.S., whether that be drug trafficking or human smuggling. It's a close partnership. They've always accepted back deportees, and they've done a lot to stop the flow of Venezuelans coming to the United States. In fact, no country's taken in more Venezuelans who have fled the conditions in that country than Colombia, and a lot of that is because of U.S. investment. So it's just so critical to the whole operation in terms of what Trump wants to do at the border, even what the Biden administration's plans were to curb border numbers. Without Colombia, it's not just accepting deportations, it also means a lot more people flowing through that part of the world.
Julia, let's talk about what we saw here at home over the weekend. Multiple raids, operations taking place across the country. What have we seen so far?
Well, we learned from ICE yesterday, they said they did over 900 arrests in a single day. That seems to be well outside the norm. As we know, the average in September, the last month for which data is available, was 282. We saw them bring that up to over 500 on Thursday and Friday. dipped a little bit on Saturday. But Sunday, we understand that was the beginning of a nationwide blitz. And I think that those are going to be continued arrest numbers at least through the week. One of the reasons they're so high is because they're not just depending on ICE agents anymore. So I'm told it's all hands on deck, and they're bringing in those DHS components. That means DEA. We saw DEA do operations in Atlanta, like you mentioned. We've seen operations in Los Angeles. And then the biggest place by far has seemed to be Chicago, where there have been quite a number of arrests over the weekend. We still want to get a breakdown of how many arrests ICE has done, because I think that that's a good way to compare exactly what's changed here. There was also some reporting we have not yet confirmed at NBC News, but Washington Post reported about quotas, that these agents have been told that they need to arrest between 1,200 and 1,500 migrants in a day. Obviously, yesterday they didn't meet that quota, but you can see that these numbers are really rising. And in large part, it's because they've just increased the manpower so much, Savannah.
Julia, I know you've had an inside look at what a typical deportation flight looks like. Tell us about what the people on those flights do have to go through.
Well, I should say those weren't military flights because that's new as of this week, but just the Friday before Trump took office, my producer, Lars Strickler, and I were able to go to Harlingen, Texas, and see a plane that carried over 100 migrants back to Honduras. And we watch as they come off of a bus, usually leaving detention. They're in what they call restraints. You would call them handcuffs, and a lot of times they're connected to chains around their feet. Everyone is chained except for children and parents who are traveling with children. They're only allowed to bring a 40-pound bag onto the plane. That's it. And those aren't carry-ons. They go underneath. There's a lot of security that goes in place. In fact, they have about 20 staff on the plane, whether they be medical personnel, security, or the pilots themselves, in order to have a secure flight out of the country. They do say there have been some incidents in the past, but also if they're not considered high risk, they are allowed to get about and move around the plane as well.
All right, Julia Ainsley, thank you so much for your reporting here. Let's continue this conversation with NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar. She joins us now near the border in El Paso, Texas. Priya, good morning. So over the weekend, we saw more troops arriving in Texas where they're being deployed to the Mexican border. What's it like there on the ground right now? What have these troops been ordered to do?
Good morning, Savannah. Yeah, it's been a very active few days here in El Paso. We've seen a number of airplanes land at Biggs Airfield on Fort Bliss, carrying some of those 1,500 troops that have been deployed to the region. Those are 500 Marines and 1,000 active duty soldiers who are joining the 2,500 National Guardsmen and reserve forces that were already deployed along the border. And they have three primary missions, really. One is to construct those temporary and permanent physical barriers to try to stop illegal border crossings. The second one is intelligence analysts will be used for the monitoring and detection of migrants. And the third, probably the most interesting one, because this is kind of different than what we've seen before, is military aircraft are actually going to be used to assist the Department of Homeland Security in some of those deportation flights that you just heard Julia talk about. We actually saw one of those deportation flights leave from here at Fort Bliss on Thursday, headed toward Guatemala. But one important thing to keep in mind is that the military troops that are being deployed here are not allowed to perform any of those law enforcement functions that we're really seeing CBP and ICE do. So they're not allowed to make arrests. And that's something that we have been hearing from folks who have been reacting to this troop surge, is that they're interested to see exactly how the military is going to be used. We also heard from a Democratic congresswoman from the El Paso area who was wondering kind of where these troops were coming from and if perhaps they were being diverted from other missions that could potentially jeopardize national security. But as far as what we're actually seeing happen here in El Paso, those troops are landing and they're being briefed at Fort Bliss. And then we're hearing that they could be stationed anywhere along the 2,000-mile border. So that could be here in Texas, but also in either Arizona, New Mexico, or even California, Savannah.
Priya, we do know that there were protests over the weekend across Texas directed at the deportation efforts and the immigration raids. What was the message they were trying to send to officials?
Yeah, that's right, Joe. A lot of the protests that we saw here in Texas were similar to the ones that we saw across the country. Hundreds of people showing up in Fort Worth. We also saw protests in downtown Dallas and outside of the state capitol in Austin. And really, what these people were protesting is these mass deportation efforts and these raids that are going on. Many of the people who spoke with reporters expressed concern that the border czar Tom Homan, who you saw speaking to our Gabe Gutierrez earlier, confirmed that doing raids and conducting these operations, even in places like schools and churches, are not off the table. And so many of them said, listen, we don't have an issue if you're going to be deporting some of these high-level criminals who have been convicted of violent offenses. But when it comes to just undocumented migrants, people coming in and sort of conducting these very visually scary raids is something that concerns them. And it's also important to remember that here in Texas, well, this is a border state. There's many families who have mixed status. And so that's something that's really concerning to the people who live here, is they don't want to be separated from their family members, as you can imagine. Guys?
All right, Priya, thank you.
It has been a week since his inauguration, and President Trump is still putting his mark on the federal government. Late Friday night, he fired nearly 24 inspectors general. Those are government watchdogs who conduct investigations in agencies to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. He says they, quote, don't align with his agenda.
Well, Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, who's the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, says Trump's decision is legally questionable because it did not directly follow the process laid out in a 2022 federal law to protect inspectors general.
NBC News White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist joins us now with more on this. Aaron, good morning. So we know inspectors general, they're typically thought to be independent, nonpartisan figures within government agencies. One of the officials who was fired, Interior Department IG Mark Greenblatt, actually appointed by Mr. Trump in 2019. So walk us through what happened here, what some of these officials are saying.
Yeah, so Joe and Savannah, we saw this late Friday night purge of at least 18 inspectors general by our count who got notices that they were fired basically immediately. We're talking about from the Department of Defense, State Department, from Health and Human Services, from the Labor Department, among several other agencies. And you made the point that one of the concerns that has been brought up by both Democrats and Republicans through the weekend was that there is a law in place that was tightened back in 2022 to make sure that if these independent inspectors were going to be fired, it had to happen with a 30-day notice to Congress that included a detailed explanation as to why these people were being fired. And I want you to hear, you mentioned Mr. Greenblatt, I want you to hear part of his concern about these firings having happened and the way that they happened.
This was sort of the worst case scenario, was a mass firing. This is highly problematic, I think, for the American taxpayer, because we want independent, fair, objective, independent oversight inside our federal agencies. And that's what those 17 or 18 IGs were providing on a daily basis.
Now, we heard from California Senator Adam Schiff on this issue over the weekend, and he said that one of his concerns is that the Trump administration is trying to make sure that there isn't attention called to any malfeasance that may come from President Trump. So that's a concern that's out there at this point. The White House, for its part, has said that there was White House counsel oversight of this process. But one official told our team that they're going to check back to make sure that there weren't concerns, legal concerns from the White House counsel's office about this particular issue, Joe and Savannah.
Hey, Aaron, also on Friday, Trump's contentious pick for Defense Secretary, that's Pete Hegseth, he was confirmed just barely, though. Vice President J.D. Vance actually did have to step in and cast a tie-breaking vote. After this, the White House is warning Republicans of what they're saying are political consequences if they don't support all of Trump's remaining nominees. Walk us through this.
Yeah, there's one White House official who told our team that you either support everyone or you don't. And we know that there are other controversial figures other than Pete Hegseth. You have Tulsi Gabbard, who's up for Director of National Intelligence, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who would lead the Health and Human Services Department, as well as Kash Patel, who would be the FBI Director. And these are all people who could have a little bit of a fight when they come up for confirmation, when they come up for a vote in the Senate. And so there's one White House official who told our team that there are well-funded organizations, people, groups who are not in the White House, but who may be somewhat connected to the Trump team, who could go out there when some of these members of the Senate are up for re-election and just make things difficult for them. And so the suggestion is that they need to get in lockstep totally with President Trump's agenda in order to not have to bear the brunt of any sort of pushback from those people. And obviously, we know that there are most Republicans who are aligned with the president. But as you saw with Pete Hegseth, you had 3 who defected.
All right, Aaron, thank you so much.
Thanks, Aaron. Well, President Trump's Inauguration Day decision to pardon more than 1,500 January 6th defendants continues to generate controversy in Washington. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham is now calling the decision a, quote, mistake. Yesterday, he told Meet the Press moderator Kristen Welker that between those pardons and former President Biden's pardons on his way out of office, it borders on abuse of power. Here's Kristen with more.
Hello there, Joe and Savannah. This week on Meet the Press, I spoke with Republican Senator Lindsey Graham about President Donald Trump's move to issue pardons for January 6 rioters during his first day in office.
Number one, he had the legal authority to do it, but I fear that you will get more violence. Pardoning the people who went into the Capitol and beat up a police officer violently, I think was a mistake because it seems to suggest that's an okay thing to do. Kamala Harris wanted to raise bail money for people burning down Minneapolis. You know, Biden pardoned half his family going out the door. I think most Americans, if this continues, to see this as an abuse of the pardon power, that we'll revisit the pardon power of the president if this continues. But as to pardoning violent people who beat up cops, I think that's a mistake.
So you think it was a mistake by President Trump to issue these blanket pardons? What message does it convey to law enforcement? And if you conveyed that directly to Mr. Trump?
There's really been no better supporter of law enforcement in general. And there are a lot of people who supported President Trump and law enforcement didn't like this. But he said it during the campaign. He's not tricking people. You know, Biden promised not to pardon his family. He did. Trump said, I'm going to pardon these people. So the fact that he did it is no surprise. But I'll be consistent here. I don't like the idea of bailing people out of jail or pardoning people who burned down cities and beat up cops, whether you're Republican or a Democrat.
You can see my full interview and a lot more at meetthepress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4 p.m.
Kristen, thank you.
On the West Coast, Southern California is now facing a new danger. Heavy rain is threatening to trigger mudslides in places burned out by the recent wildfires. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson takes a look at how some of the last homes standing are now at risk of being swept away.
After the most tragic trial by fire Southern California has ever faced, now a new threat. The rain. A major rainstorm will all but extinguish what remains of any flames. But in the burn-scarred hillsides of the Palisades, rain triggered this debris flow, cutting off roads for fear of landslides.
And as the water rushes underneath it, the foundation gets less and less stable.
Firefighters forced to pivot from fighting fire to fighting floods.
Our station is getting filled with water.
We met Palisades Fire Captain Eric Nakamaru as his crews work to prevent his own station from going underwater. They're pumping water out over here?
So right now we're pumping the water out of the station. Parts of the station are flooded right now.
And the worry here is real. Experts say land moves about 7 times faster on a burn scar than on land with vegetation. And as you can see, much of this area is blackened.
The first heavy rain we get, we're very concerned.
Lisa Guerrero's Malibu home survived the fire, but she's worried about what could happen next.
There's a hill in front of us that's about to come down, and then there's a hill behind us that could come down on us.
Crews scrambling to build barriers around some of the worst hit areas, worried about toxic chemicals in the debris that could flow into nearby waterways, even the ocean. A flood of new concerns facing a community already living through the worst case scenario.
Our thanks to Steve Patterson for that report.
For more on how this rain's impacting Los Angeles, let's take a look at your Morning News Now weather.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Well, that beneficial rain continues to fall, but yes, we do have the threat for some flooding still, also the chance for some debris flows. This is what radar looks like right now. You can see some of the rain is heavy where you're seeing those darker colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows. That's where we're seeing the heaviest rain falling. Also looking at some blue, some whiter, lighter blue, even the white color. That's heavy snow falling. And we could add an additional half foot on top of that. That's really good news for the snowpack. So zooming in a little closer here, we have a scattered area of some heavier showers, some lighter showers, and we're going to add about a ½ inch to a ¼ inch in some spots today. Because of that, we do have a flood watch in some spots. That includes Santa Clarita. And again, yes, we will be watching over the next couple of hours the chance for more flash flooding. Most of this will start to move out later on this afternoon. Winter weather advisories, also winter storm warnings. Those are in the pink. Winter weather advisories are in the white. Flagstaff, Kingman, down down to Fraser Park, up to Bishop, and that's good news, really for the skiers, but also for the really dry ground that we have going on out there. Here's that area of low pressure. It's making its way towards the southeast, and that's what's going to continue, kind of impacting the southwest over the next several days. So the heaviest rain and snow shifting into Arizona. We're going to see really breezy conditions. Winds gusting up to 40 miles per hour. That's going to do a couple things. Out ahead of this system in Arizona, we will see an elevated fire risk because of those gusty winds. Also really dry weather before the rain arrives later on tonight into tomorrow. So portions of New Mexico and Arizona could see that elevated fire risk today. Then by Tuesday, we'll see that low pressure system moving further to the east. So we'll see the Four Corners now be impacted with scattered snow pushing into Colorado. Really windy, too, across the northern tier of the nation, especially the upper Midwest and to the Great Lakes area, parts of the Northeast as well. 28 million people impacted by wind alerts. We could see winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour in spots, especially in Buffalo. That's going to do a couple things. We could see some lake effect snow bands, could see some snow squalls as well from today, Tuesday into Wednesday. So that's going to be a big thing because that really is dangerous as you're traveling out and about on the roads. So for today, that cold front sinks through, and then by tomorrow, we'll see that clipper system working through once again, and we'll see some heavy rain still, especially downwind of Lake Ontario.
Just adding to the sadness in Buffalo this morning.
I know. The Bills Mafia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
But listen, Eagles fan right here.
Okay, so you're a happy fan.
I wanted to play the Buffalo, but it's okay.
They looked pretty good yesterday. All right, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
As Yogi Berra said, it is deja vu all over again in the NFL. The matchup now officially set for Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans in less than 2 weeks. On February 9th, the Kansas City Chiefs will take on Michelle's Philadelphia Eagles, a rematch of the big game from just 2 years ago. Now, the Chiefs won that game 38-35. This is also the Chiefs' fourth trip to the Super Bowl in the last 5 years.
Now, fans from Philly have high hopes for their Eagles to get revenge this time around, while also trying to spoil Kansas City's shot at a three-peat. The last time that happened, almost 60 years ago, when the Green Bay Packers did it. So whether you're glued to the game, maybe you're in it for the commercials or the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar and SZA, or now the Taylor Swift sightings, there's plenty to get excited about.
Looking forward to that. All right, we have a lot more to get to this morning, including Elon Musk's growing push into international politics, his controversial message to a far-right party in Germany.
But at first, a breakthrough deal in the Middle East comes amid contentious comments from President Trump about the future of Gaza. We've got the latest from the region next. We're back with the latest in the Middle East, where the fragile ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas is holding despite a crisis over the weekend that threatened to unravel it. 4 female Israeli soldiers who were taken hostage by Hamas were released on Saturday and reunited with their parents in exchange for 200 Palestinian prisoners.
Under the deal, Israel was supposed to allow Palestinians to return to Gaza that day, but Israel did not sign off on that, citing the captivity of a civilian hostage who they said should have been freed along with the other hostages. The move prompted Hamas to accuse Israel of violating the agreement, putting the entire deal in danger. But this morning, Qatar, acting as a mediator, announced an agreement has been reached to release the civilian hostage, allowing Palestinians to return to northern Gaza, keeping the ceasefire in place for now.
NBC News International correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us from Tel Aviv with the latest on this. Raf, good morning. So tell us how this all unfolded over the weekend and some of the specifics here, the terms of the agreement that led to this.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. So the whole world saw those emotional scenes as those 4 female Israeli soldiers were released from captivity in Gaza after 477 days. A lot of cheering, a lot of tears in this country as they were brought back to the waiting arms of their parents. What the world did not see was major crisis negotiations going on throughout the day on Sunday. As you said, Israel accusing Hamas of breaching the deal by not releasing an Israeli female civilian ahead of those 4 soldiers. Hamas saying Israel breaching the deal by not allowing Palestinian civilians to return to northern Gaza. And then this breakthrough mediated by Qatar. And what we are now looking at is a very busy, potentially bumper week here in the Middle East. Palestinian civilians, as we speak, on their way back to northern Gaza. We're going to see 3 hostages released on Thursday, which was not part of the original schedule. And then we're going to see another 3 hostages released on Saturday. Now, we learned just a couple of minutes ago, guys, that Hamas has handed some information to Israel indicating that of the 26 hostages who are still in Gaza but slated to be released in phase 1 of this ceasefire deal. 8 of those hostages are dead. 18 of them are still alive. So while there was real joy in this country at the release of those 4 young soldiers, there are going to be difficult days ahead as Israelis learn who those 8 hostages who lost their lives are.
Just adding to the roller coaster of these last 15-plus months. Raf, as thousands of displaced Palestinians were waiting to return home to northern Gaza on Saturday, another huge headline. President Trump had this to say to reporters about what he'd like to see to the people in Gaza.
I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing.
All right, so lots of reaction to this one, including from Egypt and Jordan. Raf, what are people saying?
Yeah, Joe, so President Trump kind of casually throwing out this idea as he was chatting with reporters on Air Force One over the weekend, but it has sent absolute shockwaves through the Middle East. Just for context here, he is basically suggesting moving 3/4 of the population of Gaza out of the Strip, out of their home, and sending them to 2 U.S. allies, Egypt and Jordan. And the response from those 2 nations has been an immediate and resounding no. They are saying this is a complete non-starter as far as they are concerned. The Palestinian Authority is saying they will not see Palestinians displaced from their homes. So a lot of reaction here in the Middle East to those comments. It does point to the question of just how on earth Gaza is going to be rebuilt, given the scale of the devastation right now. And President Trump's suggestion seems to have been that that construction project might be easier if those civilians were not inside the Strip. Guys.
Raf, as these Palestinians do now make their way home, we're showing some video here. As people get to northern Gaza, I mean, just walk us through what they're returning to, what the conditions are.
They're not returning to much, Savannah. UN figures indicate that 90% of the homes in Gaza are damaged or destroyed at this point. That number is likely even higher in northern Gaza, where the fighting has been most intense. Even in the last couple of months, while those ceasefire negotiations were reaching that critical stage, Israel absolutely hammering northern Gaza. The hospitals there are devastated. The civilian infrastructure is devastated. And yet, despite all of that, we have seen just this absolute determination on behalf of Palestinian families that they want to go back to their homes, even if their homes are no longer standing. Guys.
Rob Sanchez, thank you very much.
This morning, mega billionaire Elon Musk is facing a new wave of criticism. Over the weekend, he addressed a rally for Germany's far-right political party.
What's the latest controversy for one of President Trump's closest allies within his new administration, as the Tesla CEO continues to try to expand his reach and influence in global politics? NBC News White House correspondent Von Hilliard has more.
Yeah, good morning, Joe and Savannah. Look, when you're talking about Elon Musk, you're talking about somebody, the world's richest man, who was heavily involved in the Trump campaign and the lead up to Election Day. And then during the course of the transition was effectively at Mar-a-Lago more days than not. But now with Donald Trump in the White House and still playing a role there, Elon Musk is setting his sights beyond, particularly to politics in Europe.
I'm very excited for the AfD.
Growing criticism over a virtual appearance by Elon Musk. Musk beaming into a campaign event this weekend for Germany's far-right party known as the AfD. But it's this apparent reference to Nazi Germany's history that is drawing attention.
I think there's, frankly, too much of a focus on past guilt, and we need to move beyond that. Children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents.
His comments quick to receive backlash. The chair of Yad Vashem, Israel's memorial to Holocaust victims, calling it an insult to the victims of Nazism and a clear danger to the democratic future of Germany. The remarks coming less than a week after Musk posted a series of Nazi-related puns online in response to criticism over this gesture he made at an inauguration event, which some have interpreted as a Nazi salute. The Anti-Defamation League appearing to initially defend Musk, saying he made an awkward gesture, not a Nazi salute, but later called out his series of Nazi jokes, saying they only serve to minimize the evil and inhumanity of Nazi crimes. Musk describing what he did as moving his hand from my heart to the audience. NBC News reached out to the White House for comment, but did not hear back. Musk, who has already played a key role in President Trump's administration, has appeared to support and endorse far-right parties across Europe, like Germany's AfD. In 2017, the AfD adopted a 2017 election manifesto, which included a section on why Islam does not belong to Germany. Musk has also spoken out in support of the UK's Reform Party, which helped initiate the Brexit campaign, and said this about Italy's far-right prime minister.
Giorgia Meloni is someone that I admire.
Meanwhile, some MAGA allies, like Steve Bannon, have chided Musk over his criticism this week of an AI tech announcement at the White House in support of visas for high-skilled foreign workers.
Now, just this weekend aboard Air Force One, President Trump reiterated that Musk will have an office at the White House complex to lead DOGE, that unit intended to cut government costs. So, at least as of right now, Elon Musk isn't going anywhere.
All right, Vaughn, thank you. Coming up, a street once seen as a dividing line in one community is transforming.
But that change could force some longtime neighbors out of their homes. We got that story just ahead. Welcome back. As Los Angeles recovers from those devastating wildfires, scientists in Southern California are studying the potential impact of the fires on our oceans.
Meteorologist Greg Bledsoe with our San Diego affiliate explains why some are now concerned that toxic ash from the fires could even impact the food we eat.
When the fires tore through Los Angeles, destroying thousands of homes and businesses, they also sent towering plumes of ash and smoke out over the ocean that could be seen from space.
Plumes of smoke, and it was so thick, even 70, 100 miles offshore.
You can see the ash, though.
As chance would have it, a group of scientists from San Diego happened to be off the coast of L.A. collecting water samples.
Dark gray confetti all over the water, which was the ash. That's how they described it. We realized this was an opportunity to find out what was happening.
With the deck covered in soot, scientists immediately changed course and started collecting that ashy ocean water, because even the tiniest debris in that water could tell us a lot.
What are the impacts of this, of the fire, the smoke, in the marine ecosystem?
NOAA's Dr. Noel Boland heads up what's called the Cal Coffee Project, which started 75 years ago.
Our team goes out and collects plankton samples, and they get preserved in jars like this.
More than 1 million of those samples have now been preserved.
Oh, this is a good one.
In this room.
January 1963.
Like tiny time capsules.
Thousands of little larvae, and you know, they all have a story to tell.
And as the ocean and what's in it changes, even just a little, so can those samples.
If something doesn't look right in how it's formed, you'll see it. You'll be able to see that.
This is not the first time scientists have studied wildfire ash falling into the ocean, but these are not typical wildfires.
So many of those fires that we've seen before are, you know, vegetation fires. These are urban fires. So these are houses, neighborhoods, people's homes, they are businesses.
Which means when memories and livelihoods went up in flames, so did all kinds of toxic materials, something now being referred to as urban ash.
The ash, honestly, is going to contain a lot of toxins. We expect to see things like asbestos and other polycarbonates that we wouldn't normally see in a vegetation fire. Right now, off of California, this is peak anchovy spawning time. In the ash samples, we have pictures from our crew at sea of samples that are thick with anchovy eggs and all a bunch of ash and fire debris in that same sample. Why should people care about whether anchovies are healthy or not, or the ecosystem is healthy or not? Well, because the base of the food system is so important for humans. Anchovies feed birds, mammals, other big fishes that we all love to eat.
Think of it like a trickle-up effect that could take weeks or years to notice. Are you concerned?
Yeah, I am. I'm concerned because we do expect to see some change. Will it be huge? I don't know that answer. So, yes, I am concerned, and I'm concerned for the community.
All right, thanks to Greg Bledsoe for that report. That group of scientists is still collecting samples off the coast. The next step will be to bring them back to San Diego to start comparing them to the decades worth of older samples that they have stored.
All right, after the break, we're going to introduce you to a man who helped transform his neighborhood but is now struggling to keep his business afloat because of rising costs.
Our report into the other side of progress and prosperity is next. We're back with a story NBC News first covered 6 years ago. Troost Avenue in Kansas City was once seen as a racial and economic dividing line in the city. Well, now as the neighborhood undergoes a transformation, that's all changing. NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton found that for some residents, the changes have brought new challenges.
Last September, each day before he opened up his juice shop, Ruby Jeans, Chris Good took the same walk along Kansas City's Troost Avenue that he would make as a child.
And this is the same corner, the same bus stop that you used to go to as a kid.
This is our bus stop.
The difference now is that he owns part of the block. This was his dream, to bring his community access to vibrant, nutritious food.
Thank y'all so much for the patience.
Good launched his business in 2015 to honor his grandmother, Ruby Jean, who passed away from diabetes.
She loved us endlessly, and the way that she communicated that love the most was through her food.
Good was also answering a call in his community, helping to revitalize a poor neighborhood. He opened a store in his childhood neighborhood in 2017. 5 years later, he bought the building right on Troost Avenue.
You look west of the line, it's about 95% white. You look east of the line, it's about 95% black.
In 2018, Lester reported on the role Troost Avenue played as Kansas City's historic racial dividing line. A transformation underway then continues today. New high-end condo buildings, trendy restaurants, and businesses like Ruby Jeans, filling long-time vacant real estate.
I would love something, thank you.
But progress comes with a price.
What's it been like for you trying to hold on and grow this business?
It's been tough.
In 2023, Good received a letter from the county. Following a new property value assessment, his taxes were going up by 657%. At first, he thought it was an error. But homeowner taxes were going up too. To Good, his level of increase just seemed unfair.
There's somebody stroking a piece of paper with a pen, apathetically, unconsciously, has no connection to the service that we provide to this city, the gravity that we are for this city.
But in a statement to NBC News, Jackson County said the increase was fair and reasonable, that state law requires the county to reassess properties every 2 years. And in the case of Chris Good, rising demand and investment in the surrounding area have driven higher property values, which have impacted assessments across the region. The county adding that aligning property values with the market helps address historical systemic inequities. Good is now staring down a $60,000 tax bill he says he can't afford, and one for now he says he won't pay.
I refuse. You're not gonna run us out of here.
Not willing to abandon the dream that a young boy from the east side could own a piece of this place too. Antonia Hilton, NBC News, Kansas City, Missouri.
Staying with some money news now, Twin Cities Pride is cutting ties with Target following the retailer's recent DEI rollback announcement.
CNBC's Savannah Hanau has that and other news for your wallet. Savannah, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Good morning to you. Yes, so Target won't have a presence in the Pride Parade or festivities in the company's hometown of Minneapolis and St. Paul this year. Now, Twin Cities Pride says the move follows Target's decision to roll back its DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, and they included hiring and promoting more women and minorities and recruiting more diverse suppliers. Twin Cities Pride says it's in discussions with Target about the impact this has on the community and the employees. About 40% of adults who are married in a civil partnership or are living together say they've committed financial infidelity against their significant other. A new Bankrate survey says this includes spending more than a spouse or partner would be okay with, having secret debt, a secret credit card, savings, or checking account, and almost half believe keeping financial secrets from a partner are as bad or worse than cheating on them. And Coke is at Costco. The Warehouse Retail Club is switching the soda fountains in its food courts to Coca-Cola and will no longer serve Pepsi products. The announcement coming during Costco's shareholders meeting last week. The company switched from Coke to Pepsi in 2013 as it tried to keep the price of its flagship $1.50 hot dog combo, guys.
Whatever it takes to protect the hot dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Wow. Also, I'm a major Coke girl and a new Costco member, so that's good news all around.
Thanks, Savannah.
Thank you. Well, now to another way artificial intelligence is changing our everyday lives.
Yeah, this time fast food giant Wendy's is rolling out AI at a number of drive-through locations all across the country. NBC News correspondent Adrian Broadus went behind the scenes and put the tech to the test.
It looks like a typical drive-through.
You can start placing your order when ready.
Can I get a number 8, please?
But the voice taking orders at this Wendy's
What dipping sauce?
is actually powered by artificial intelligence.
Did you know who you were talking to?
Yeah, it was a robot.
It's part of the future for Wendy's. They call it Fresh AI.
And we're always thinking about what is the right technology that solves the right problem at Wendy's.
Here's how it works. A customer drives up and talks into this speaker.
Hi, welcome to Wendy's. Feel free to order whenever you are ready.
The AI takes the order, listening and responding to questions.
Can I get 2 double stacks?
Inside, human workers watch a monitor as the order comes. Then they prepare the meal. We went through the drive-thru to see how it works.
Hi, I would like 6 regular nuggets and 6 spicy nuggets. Spicy nuggets here, regular nuggets here. Let's try it again.
On this run, I tried to trip the AI.
5-piece nugget.
Ordering something not on the menu. That's when a human stepped in to help.
I do apologize about that. We only have 4, 6, and 10-piece nuggets.
In 2023, Wendy's started offering AI drive-thrus. Now, nearly 100 across 19 states, with more on the way.
If I wanted to order in French, could I?
You cannot currently order in French. You can, however, order in Spanish.
It's part of a growing trend as the food industry goes high-tech. More and more chains installing self-serve kiosks like these to place your orders. Some Sweet Green locations have automated kitchens creating salads. Chipotle is testing robots to prepare burrito bowls. McDonald's also experimented with AI drive-thrus and then took it off the menu. The company saying it may revisit them in the future. But Wendy's partnered with Google Cloud to create their tech. It uses generative AI, which means it's always learning and should improve over time. But it does raise concerns for some people.
I hate to see somebody lose their job.
Could it put humans out of work?
It's always been an assistant, never a replacement.
Which drink?
Customers who spoke with us seem willing to give it a chance.
Took my order just like it would normally and seemed a little faster.
A new trend driven by technology.
Please pull up to the next window.
Adrian Broadus, NBC News, New Albany, Ohio.
Sorry, French speakers.
But that might not work with
But then
an
the French-speaking employee will jump right in to take your order for you.
Pretty cool. All right. Well, from Taylor Swift to Beyonce to Charlie XCX, 2024 was a major year for music.
So who will you be bobbing your head to this year? We're going to sit down with an expert to find out who are the artists to watch in 2025.
Welcome back. Finally, this hour, the experts over at Spotify have been keeping a close watch on the latest trends in what new music people are streaming.
This morning, they're releasing their brand new Artists to Watch list of 2025. These are the rising stars who they predict will top the music charts and influence what we're listening to this year.
Joining us here on set is John Stein. He's Spotify's head of North American editorial. Here to tell us who made the cut, which artists are up and on the rise. Hi, John. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. We love when you guys come by. So tell us, let's start with this list. I know some names people might recognize, but maybe not all viewers of our show, so we'll explain who they are, and others maybe we haven't heard of yet.
Yeah, so every year we select the most exciting new artists that we think are going to shape the sound of this year. So this year we have 35 artists. One that you might be surprised to see is Addison Rae. So you might know her as an actor and an influencer, but she's
big TikToker, right?
Big TikToker. She's also a musician. And at the end of last year, she released 2 singles that are actually really, really good.
Okay.
And started to react with listeners on Spotify. So we're really excited to see where she goes in 2025.
What type of music is it?
It's like this 90s infused pop it's cool. It's
wow.
really cool.
I'm so surprised to hear that. Just
yeah.
You know, because sometimes people switch from acting or influencing into that, and it might not go so well. What are some of those other names on there people might not have heard?
Yeah, so we're really excited about this country artist out of Washington State named Zach Top. He kind of sounds like George Strait if George Strait was born in 1997.
Okay.
We're also really excited
cool.
about Saya Gray. She's a Canadian artist who mixes R&B and indie rock in this really kind of undefinable way.
We do have to talk about your selection process. How do you figure out who's going to be on this list?
Yeah, so the editorial team at Spotify, we spend all day, every day listening to music. That's what we do. So we work alongside our artist partnerships team, who work directly with artists and managers. We come together, we have some healthy debate, and we land on 35 artists here.
Wow. And who are you particularly excited about?
I'm really excited about this hip-hop artist named Samara Sin.
Okay.
She blends kind of these soul samples and like a really unique hip-hop flow. I'm excited to see where she goes this year.
So let's look at your success stories from the past. Who are some of the names that have been on this list in the past who did just what you said they would do? They had a huge year and went on to big things.
Yeah. 2024 was a great year for us. Chappell Roan, Teddy Swims were both on the list, and this year they're nominated for Best New Artist at the Grammys.
They did pretty well, yeah.
They did pretty well.
Who else?
Yeah, so last year we also had Tyla on the list, who had a huge hit last year with Water, and has been just killing it on a world tour. One of the things we love about this list is that it really lets us shine a light on these artists on our playlists all around the world and track their success throughout their careers. So we're really excited to see what the class of 2025 can do.
And I know you just mentioned playlists, but like you organize this in a way where people can go find this easily, right?
Yeah, so this playlist will all be available on Spotify all around the world. Artists to Watch 2025. Yeah.
We sometimes get in a rut when we're listening to music. We listen to our old favorites or the same things over and over again. We don't always feel like we can take the time to invest in a new artist.
Yeah, true.
When you do this, it kind of make it easy for people to listen to these things. Yeah. What's some of the reactions you hear just from people who use Spotify or just even your friends who like check out the list and like hear something they never thought they'd hear before?
Yeah, people love it. I mean, we love making lists like this that are really across all genres. Sometimes we get stuck in one genre, right? But you get to hear artists like Samara Sin, who's a hip-hop artist, next to country artists. And I think it can really open up, you know, what listeners on Spotify are listening to. People are really excited. We've already seen a great reaction this morning since it launched.
What else can we look forward to from your team this year? What other type of stuff do you curate for listeners throughout the year?
We're going to have new playlists coming out constantly throughout the year. We're going to have more playlists like Artists to Watch. We have playlists across all genres dedicated to new music, discovering great new artists. So look out for those.
I love that. John Stein, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Congrats on the list being out, and happy listening, everybody.
Thanks.
That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning. Thanks for starting your Monday with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, new era. President Trump's border policies put into action with a massive operation to arrest undocumented migrants in cities across the U.S. All this as the president faces down U.S. ally Colombia over whether it will accept migrants from deportation flights. The threat of tariffs that forced a U-turn and all the other latest angles on this fast-moving story. Emotional homecoming. Tens of thousands of Palestinians returning home to North Gaza today after a deal was reached to free more Israeli hostages, ensuring the ceasefire holds. Their hopes to rebuild the devastated land as those Israeli families wait for news on their loved ones. Also this morning, fury of the flu, a perfect storm of factors leading to flu cases spiking with thousands of deaths and rising hospitalizations. We're going to talk to a doctor about how to keep yourself protected and also bring you the good news on why doctors think COVID infections are actually milder this year. And could it be a three-peat? Super Bowl 59 is set with the Philadelphia Eagles facing the Kansas City Chiefs at the Superdome, giving the Chiefs a shot at a record-breaking third title in a row. We're going to break down all the buzz, all the biggest storylines off the field. Excitement building in New Orleans with less than 2 weeks to go. If it sounds familiar, we did this one 2 years ago, but we don't have a Kelsey versus Kelsey standoff unlike last time. So.
But now we've got Taylor Swift.
You do have Taylor Swift now, so we've heard. All right. Let's begin this hour with President Trump's crackdown on undocumented immigrants. Multiple government agencies, spearheaded by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, are expected to continue raids and operations this morning all across the country. Over the weekend, 956 people were arrested. That is the most in a single day since the Trump administration took over.
All of that as the United States and Colombia clashed over 2 U.S. deportation flights that were denied entry to the South American country. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has the latest from Chicago.
ICE agents are expected to be back out in full force here again today, with other federal law enforcement agencies helping with the roundups too. And now the Trump administration sending a message to the world, threatening another close U.S. ally with tariffs. This morning, President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration is ramping up in cities nationwide, including Los Angeles, Denver, and Chicago.
We immediately halted all illegal entry and began sending every border trespasser and violator back to the places from which they came.
His mass deportation plan now sparking an international standoff. Colombia, typically a close U.S. ally, turning away 2 American military aircraft with deportees. The country's president saying a migrant is not a criminal and should be treated with the dignity a human being deserves. Trump threatening Colombia with a 25% tariff on all Colombian goods coming to the U.S. and also demanding the U.S. visas of Colombian government officials be revoked. Colombia's leader then attacking Trump online, saying, "You will never dominate us." But later, the country reversing course, according to the White House, agreeing to all of President Trump's terms, including the unrestricted acceptance of migrants.
And I think that we got a strong president, President Trump. We got a strong president that's going to demand action. If they don't act, then there'll be consequences.
In Chicago, Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, overseeing expanded operations to arrest undocumented immigrants. The Washington Post, citing 4 people with knowledge of ICE briefings, reports that the agency has set a quota of at least 1,200 to 1,500 arrests per day.
Is that what you're hoping for? Look, we want to get as many criminals as possible, so there's no number on it.
Overnight, ICE saying it made nearly 1,000 arrests nationwide on Sunday, the most so far. Since Trump's inauguration, the agency says it's taken more than 2,600 people into custody. Advocates worry undocumented immigrants with no violent records will be swept up too.
It's quite disturbing. They're going after people who are law-abiding, who are holding down jobs, who have families here, who may have been here for a decade or 2 decades, and they're often our neighbors and our friends.
President Trump's border czar told me that there were so-called collateral arrests yesterday. Those are undocumented immigrants without violent records who happen to be nearby when ICE agents go after their main targets.
All right, Gabe, thank you.
Let's bring in our legal analyst, Danny Savalos, to talk more about this. So with all these arrests we've seen in recent days, folks have some questions. Talk about the legality of these raids that are taking place right now.
Generally, when ICE goes to raid a place, maybe in a place of employment, they can go into all the public areas, they can go to the lobby, they can go to the parking lot, but then they either need the employer's consent or they need a judicial search warrant. But that is typically how these raids are conducted. They're not supposed to be punitive. In other words, they're not designed to punish. The detention is only to hold them until either immigration proceedings or removal. And that is the purpose behind it, even though, as you see, these are arrests, so they look like the kinds of arrests we see on TV that police make. But again, the idea is not punitive. It's that they're being held for further proceedings. And just as Gabe talked about, other people can be caught up. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody with a criminal record or an open warrant, an arrest warrant. It could be anybody who is undocumented.
So you talk about what that next step is, either immigration proceedings or removal, I think were the words you used. What happens next once they're taken into custody?
Well, traditionally, and I say traditionally because we're only a few days into really a new era and a bevy of executive orders that may change this going forward. But traditionally, a person had the option of seeking asylum, for example, when it came to contesting their proceedings. The future of that right now is uncertain. But as this goes forward, in terms of taking, taking people into custody. Another way they do it is by issuing what are called detainers or ICE holds. These are also very controversial. And I, as a criminal defense attorney, I have a lot of thoughts on these, because anytime you have someone in jail and their criminal case is dismissed for any reason or it's ended, every second you hold them in custody after they're supposed to be released is arguably a constitutional violation. That's why these holds, they're not warrants, they're not judicial documents. They're basically a piece of paper that says, hey, you've got this guy, can you hold him until we come get him, if we decide to ever come get him. So those two, very controversial method and something you might see a lot of litigation over.
So what legal rights do undocumented immigrants have if they are trying to fight this deportation?
Like I mentioned before, you have folks who may seek asylum. That has been very much curtailed. Over the last few days, the government has canceled out, for example, an app that was being used for people to get in line and seek asylum. So by executive order, the government can't contradict existing law, but they can add their interpretation or the way they want to carry out that law, or even ask to look into alternative measures. So it's really hard to say exactly how all these executive orders will flesh out. But we know that over the weekend, at least they're beginning these arrests, beginning to take people into custody. And then they still have the same traditional methods of fighting that removal proceeding. But I have to tell you, very difficult once the proceedings have begun to fight removal, because the end result is usually going to be, if the government wants it, removal.
All right. People have a lot of questions about this, so Danny, appreciate you coming in to explain it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, while President Trump works to keep his mass deportation plans moving forward, the administration's also putting pressure on Senate Republicans to support his remaining cabinet nominations.
Comes after Mr. Trump's contentious pick for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth barely edged out a winning vote on Saturday, with Vice President J.D. Vance stepping in as the tiebreaker. It is only the second time in history that a VP has had to step in for a Senate confirmation vote. The last time was in 2017, Betsy DeVos, during Mr. Trump's first term.
NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us with more on this. Ryan, thanks for being with us. So it was a challenge for Hegseth all the way to the end, and he still didn't have that unanimous support from Republicans. What did happen in the final hours leading up to his official swearing in?
So, Savannah, there was a lot of scrambling amongst Senate Republicans to do everything they could to hold on to the votes they needed to get Hegseth over the finish line. There were a flurry of reports, many of them broken by our NBC News team, about Hegseth's background, particularly his relationship with his second wife, an affidavit signed by his ex-sister-in-law, where she claimed that Hegseth's then-wife lived in fear at the time. Now, Hegseth's ex-wife did reject some of the points that were made in that affidavit. She said that she was never physically abused by Hegseth, but the claims were enough to make some Republicans concerned about what it would mean if Hegseth were ultimately to become the defense secretary. There was a lot of back and forth, but ultimately he only lost 3 votes. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and the former Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. That was enough for J.D. Vance to break the tie and make Hegseth the next Secretary of Defense. Keep in mind, it is so out of the ordinary for there to be such a narrow vote for Secretaries of Defense, Republican or Democrat. They generally get in the 90s in terms of votes in the United States Senate. So the fact that he barely scraped by is significant, but he is still the Secretary of Defense regardless of how close the vote is.
It's not just Hegseth, Ryan. There are more controversial cabinet nominations scheduled for hearings this week who could face similar rocky paths to confirmation. Some might argue a couple of them have it even harder than Hegseth did. Who are they? When are their hearings scheduled?
Yeah, so the one we're really going to watch this week is a 2-day hearing for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is Trump's pick to run the Department of Health and Human Services. He is scheduled to appear before the committees on Wednesday and Thursday. Of course, RFK Jr. has a long list of issues that could prevent him from taking on this very important post. There are folks that are concerned about his track record as it relates to vaccines. There are conservative Republicans that are concerned about his track record when it comes to abortion. He's been a pro-choice politician for the majority of his life. And then there's, of course, a lot of other issues about the controversies and conspiracies that he's delved into during his time as an advocate in the public health space. Tulsi Gabbard is another cabinet secretary. She's up to be the next director of national intelligence. There's a lot of questions that senators have about her background and the connections that she has to various national security issues. So that's going to be tough sledding for many of these cabinet picks. But what we've seen here is that these senators appear to be willing to give Trump what he wants, or at the very least, they're bowing to the pressure that Trump and his allies are putting on these Republicans, particularly the ones that are up for re-election in 2 years.
Hey, also, Ryan, on Saturday, House Speaker Mike Johnson invited President Trump to speak to both chambers of Congress. This is in March, and it's supposed to be about his America First vision for the future. Has the White House responded?
They haven't officially accepted the invitation, but it's very likely that Donald Trump will appear to give this speech. Now, this isn't technically a State of the Union because he is so early into his administration, but it's going to look and sound and feel like a State of the Union, a joint session of Congress, an address to the nation that will be widely televised and watched by many. This will be an opportunity for Trump to lay out his agenda for the next 4 years, an agenda that is already underway. And, of course, it comes with the support that he has from Republicans in both the House and Senate. At this early stage of his administration, we haven't seen a ton of pushback from Democrats yet. As we wait to see how they handle the next 4 years of the Trump administration, we could get a glimpse into what they think of Trump's agenda when we see this speech here in March.
All right, Ryan, thank you very much.
We turn now to the Middle East, where thousands of displaced Palestinians have started returning home to northern Gaza. This comes after a busy weekend in the region. 4 Israeli hostages were released by Hamas in exchange for 200 Palestinian prisoners in the next phase of the ceasefire deal. Despite those gains by both sides yesterday, this fragile deal was on the brink of crisis over another hostage. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv. Raf, good morning.
Joe, good morning. We were expecting just 3 hostages to be released this week, but after late-night crisis negotiations, Israel now says a total of 6 hostages are coming home, potentially including an American.
After a weekend that saw 4 female Israeli soldiers released from Hamas captivity, Israel now preparing for the return of 6 more hostages in the coming days. A breakthrough in crisis talks after Hamas agreed to free Arbel Yehud, a civilian, raising hopes that American Keith Siegel could be free this week. In return, Israel this morning allowing thousands of displaced Palestinian civilians to go home to the ruins of northern Gaza. But President Trump igniting a diplomatic storm, suggesting most of Gaza's population could be moved to Egypt and Jordan for their own safety.
I mean, you're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing. It's literally a demolition site right now.
Egypt and Jordan, U.S. allies, rejecting the idea. While in Israel, the soldiers known as the Watchtower Girls finally came home, reunited with their parents before flying back to Tel Aviv.
And it is hovering over the helipad now.
This was Liri Al-Bag on the morning of October 7th. Her family invited us exclusively to be with them as they anxiously awaited news.
It's a big moment for us, but there are so many lives that were lost in this war, and on that day, we are so sorry for them.
And then she was free.
So real scenes of joy for that family, but there are some hard realities coming for Israel. A Middle Eastern official telling us this morning that Hamas says of the 26 hostages still in Gaza due to be released in this phase of the deal, 8 of them are dead. We are also expecting President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, here in Israel on Wednesday, and he is talking about actually going into Gaza, Joe, which would be a first for a senior U.S. official during this war.
All right, Raf, thank you so much.
Let's switch to your forecast now, because a major storm is headed for the southwest. Let's get a closer look with your Morning News Now weather.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is with us. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, we're continuing to watch that rainfall throughout the southwest. As the area low pressure is going to move further into the southwest, impacting parts of Arizona and New Mexico by later on tonight into Tuesday, and then eventually into the southern plains. So this is today. There's that rain and snow, some higher elevation snow going to add about 6 more inches, and some more rain, a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch in some spots. We still could see some localized flooding and some debris flows in spots well above average throughout the northern plains. Finally seeing those temperatures rising. Blustery, though, throughout the Great Lakes, the upper Midwest. We're looking at winds gusting there. 28 million people under wind alerts from the upper Midwest to the Northeast. We could see winds gusting near Buffalo, 60 miles per hour. We're going to see some airport delays for sure. We're looking at a frontal boundary moving throughout the Southeast. That's going to bring some wet weather there as well. As we near the midweek, we're looking at rain and snow throughout portions of the Four Corners. And we're also looking at that rain throughout the southern plains. And some of these storms, we could see some storms. Some could be on the strong side, and we could see some heavy rain as well. Plenty of sunshine, drying it back out along the west coast, especially in the southwest. And we are looking at snow showers into the Great Lakes continuing. Could see some snow squalls there even on Wednesday. That's a concern for today and also tomorrow. By Friday, we are looking at that rain expanding all the way into the Tennessee Valley, portions of the Gulf Coast states, the Ohio Valley into the Northeast. So wet really for the eastern 2/3 of the country. And we're looking at really chilly conditions. Showers return to portions of the West Coast as well. Let's talk about that southern rain because it continues to rain and it is heavy at times right now where you see those bright colors. That's where we're seeing the heaviest rain. Easy to see where that swirl is, that area of low pressure spinning in those showers. Also looking at that mountain snow. That is a blue on radar. Even some lighter colors there indicating where we're seeing the heaviest snow. We want that because we really want to start to build that snowpack back up. We do have a flood threat through the later part of today before that threat really moves off into portions of the southwest. A 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of additional rain. Could see some debris flows over those vulnerable burn scar areas. There's an area of low pressure. It kind of skirts further into the southwest. So by later on today, we're talking about the heaviest rain shifting into Arizona. Really windy, too. Winds could gust up to 40 miles per hour. That's going to prompt some elevated fire danger in parts of New Mexico and Arizona today before that wet weather really moves in later on tonight into tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Michelle.
Sure.
New developments this morning in that ongoing mystery in the skies after a frenzy of potential drone sightings. Well, last month, the FAA issued temporary flight restrictions on drones in New York and New Jersey. Well, that appeared to slow things down for a bit. Some now believe the drones are back. NBC's Sam Brock joins us now from Marlton, New Jersey with the very latest. Sam, good morning.
Joe, good morning. The drones are back. The drama surrounding the drones is back. You know, you recall weeks ago, people were just, all they were doing, Joe, was talking about this. What is flying above my home? Is that a drone? So the FAA restrictions on flying them for large parts of New York and New Jersey did expire about a week ago. Now you have an app that crowdsources sightings saying that they're seeing a huge uptick in January, and that the mystery still surrounds the situation.
So that's the airplane, but look at that.
This morning, it's not deja vu, but a possible return of more drones.
The lights are coordinated.
From Connecticut to New Jersey, new videos emerging once again.
We have like a field in the back of our house and we can see them up there.
Mandy Malisic, like others in the Northeast, spotted drones in December. But it's not a plane. Before the night sky seemingly went dark after the FAA temporarily banned drone flights in parts of the Garden State and New York amid thousands of reported sightings. Then, just over a week ago, the month-long restrictions were lifted. Have you seen them since?
We have. My daughter saw one the other day.
We're a sightings alert network.
Enigma Labs, a research company studying unidentified phenomena, has tallied 650 sightings nationally described as drone-related since November, and they say most are concentrated in the Northeast. After seeing a drop in those numbers immediately following the ban, Enigma says just this month they've received 49 reports in New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, 14 of which came after the flight bans expired.
If you look at the reports that people are submitting, they're saying, you know, I'm still seeing them, ban or no ban, and they're happening.
We pressed New York Senator Chuck Schumer Sunday about the validity of those reports.
We have now seen new drone sightings, and we're going to have to look into these.
President Trump also vowing the same on his first day back in the White House.
I would like to find out what it is and tell the people.
The president says drones flew over his Bedminster, New Jersey golf club, too, where FAA restrictions remain in effect until the end of the month. In a statement to NBC News, the FAA did not confirm the new sightings, but said the agency is responsible for ensuring drones operate safely within the broader national airspace system. Even though the Biden White House dismissed any national security risk, residents say they haven't gotten much of an explanation. Do you feel like you've had any sort of clarity?
No, and it's pretty frustrating and upsetting not to know, you know.
She described it right now as just crickets. So, Joe, Savannah, the FBI did refer us back to a statement they issued initially with the FAA and DHS saying there were some 5,000 reported sightings, and they believe fewer than 100 of them were meaningful enough to actually investigate. Enigma, that company that we spoke with, though, said they think the drones is underreported because a lot of people are looking up at the sky and not sure exactly what it is, and they're not designating it necessarily a drone sighting. They only looked at the ones that specifically mention drones. So could it be more, not less, than what we're seeing right now?
All
So
right.
it's back to you.
Hopefully we get some answers soon. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
Still ahead this morning, flu cases are surging. Later this hour, why we're seeing more hospitalizations for flu than COVID this winter.
First, though, survivors of Auschwitz gather in Poland to mark 80 years since the concentration camp was liberated by Allied forces.
Welcome back. The Auschwitz concentration camp was the setting for one of the darkest chapters in human history.
Now, 80 years after the camp was liberated by Allied forces, survivors have joined leaders from all around the world to honor its victims and to keep their memories and their stories alive. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirch is live at Auschwitz, brings us more on this. Jesse, good morning.
Joe and Savannah, good morning. There will be world leaders joining dozens of survivors here in about 90 minutes for a ceremony. But the world leaders are not going to be speaking. They, like the rest of us, are invited to listen to the warnings from these survivors, to commemorate what happened here 80 years ago today. When Soviet forces liberated this camp, they found roughly 7,000 prisoners at the largest complex of Nazi extermination camps. And what they helped uncover was one of the worst atrocities ever committed by and against humankind. We want to warn you, some of the images you're about to see are disturbing.
Their numbers are dwindling, but they're still here, and that is an act of defiance. These are the survivors of Auschwitz, the rare few to make it out of the largest Nazi extermination camp, where more than 1 million people were murdered. Most of them for one reason only: they were Jews. Eva Umlauf was one of the youngest to escape death. Joined by her son Eric, she tells us she does not remember anything from Auschwitz, but she's marked for life.
26,959.
Can you ever forget that number?
No.
She was tattooed at less than 2 years old.
You are just a number, but this number is not only on the skin. Death is deep.
She's among dozens of Holocaust survivors and world leaders gathering at the former Nazi camp in southern Poland today, marking 80 years since the camp's liberation. Poles, gay men, the Roma, and Soviet POWs were also murdered here. But above all, the Nazis and their collaborators systematically persecuted Europe's Jewish communities. They murdered roughly 6 million Jews, a staggering statistic which more than half of American adults do not know, according to a new survey.
Is your job here getting harder to get this message out now?
This job is getting harder because of the change of the generations. And young people today, their grandparents were born after the war. Holocaust, Second World War, Auschwitz, for those people starts becoming a historical topic that they meet in a historical textbook, but it's no longer part of their family background.
This was the infamous front gate of Auschwitz with a sign reading, "Work sets you free." But the reality is the overwhelming majority of people deported to Auschwitz did not survive long enough to learn that was a lie.
The trains pulled in. Families were ripped apart as the Nazis selected a relative few for slave labor and human experiments. The overwhelming majority, including children, the disabled, and the elderly, were immediately sent to the gas chambers. Their murdered remains burned to destroy the evidence, but the Nazis could not hide their crimes. There are piles of shoes, eyeglasses, suitcases, and the testimony of survivors.
What do young people need to know about what happened to you and millions like yourself?
That they have to know that it's true.
This place is now held up as evidence by survivors and advocates as proof of what can happen when you dehumanize an entire ethnicity, an entire religious group. And guys, I want to give you an idea of the scale of where we are right now. I'm going to step aside, and our photographer, Adam, is going to push it and show you beyond this row of barracks here, prison blocks. You can see chimneys. That's what remains of so many buildings across an area that would fill multiple football fields. And this is where they had around 100,000 people barely living, people who were emaciated, being worked to death, surviving at most months. Those are the people who were surviving, whether it was for a short time or for a long time. But when you look at all of this space, this is around a tenth of this would hold around a tenth of the people that were murdered at Auschwitz. Back to you guys.
All right, Jesse, such important reporting. Thank you for showing us.
More morning news now, just after the break. Stay with us. We're back with a surge in flu cases sweeping the country. Hospitals fear they may not be able to handle the influx of patients. But as flu cases tick up, COVID cases are actually going down. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra explains what's behind the shift.
A rising number of Americans are feeling the fury of the flu.
Me and my husband have had a 101 fever for 3 days.
CDC data this month reports over 6,600 flu deaths and 160,000 hospitalizations. While the flu is surging, COVID cases are down. Here's why. Doctors say COVID strains, for the most part, have become less severe over time. And this year, COVID peaked most recently in August.
COVID is milder this year, with about half the rate of hospitalizations now than exactly a year ago.
But the flu always peaks in the winter, spreading more easily this season with a combination of lower flu vaccination rates, record travel, a bitter cold winter season driving people indoors together, with little competition this season from COVID-19. It was just this week that the CIA made a big switch on their previous COVID-19 assessment. And just days after President Trump's CIA chief took his post, the agency now saying they believe with low confidence that the pandemic's origin was more likely a Chinese lab leak. And even though COVID hospitalizations are down from this time last year, doctors are still feeling the strain.
Is there a valid concern about the possibility of hospitals reaching capacity at this rate?
There is always a concern about hospitals reaching capacity, especially when flu cases are just overwhelming. So even those 1 to 10 extra hospitalizations from the flu can literally break a hospital's capacity. All the more reason to protect yourself today.
And it's not too late for protections like getting the flu vaccine. That, paired with washing hands more frequently and wiping down surfaces, can all help drive down the strain and keep your guard up. Marissa Parra, NBC News.
Thanks to Marissa for that. Well, let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. Dr. Azar, good morning. So are you surprised to see the flu overtaking COVID as the worst illness hitting people this winter?
Well, I guess we really shouldn't be surprised given the significant summer surge that we had this past year, Savannah. It was significantly higher than the surge that we saw in 2023, that is, of COVID. And flu vaccination rates are just at historic lows, especially for the young kids, for pediatrics. So in a sense, I guess this is kind of the perfect storm. And we certainly always expect flu and RSV are very predictable winter viruses. COVID hasn't necessarily fallen into that cycle, that very, very predictable cycle just yet.
So what are the best tips, first of all, to avoid catching the flu in the first place? And for those who didn't get vaccinated, the many who didn't get vaccinated, can you still do that? I know we were telling folks in late October to do this. Now it's late January.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal time, and recommended by the CDC is to get your flu shot by the end of October so that you're protected exactly now in these winter months. But it's almost never too late to get the flu shot. I know that sounds a little bit funny, maybe by the time you hit March. But even now, January, February, it's absolutely still okay to get the flu shot, and you should. Washing down surfaces, keeping your hands clean, and avoiding touching your face is one of the most important things that you can do. And to stay home if you're sick. Right now, the CDC has lumped all the respiratory viruses together that you should stay home for at least 24 hours without a fever, without using fever-reducing medications before you go back into the environment, work and school and such.
How can people tell if they have the flu versus COVID? And why is it important to know the difference? What do you do if you do have one of these?
Yeah, so no, there really is no perfect way to tell the difference between them. I would still say that I think flu really comes on like you got hit by a truck really from one day to the next with just that really powerful muscle aches and fever. COVID, the descendants that we're seeing, these strains tend to be a little bit milder. So I think people are faring pretty well with COVID at home these days. But yes, to tell the difference, there are at-home tests now. I think there are 7 that are approved that distinguish between flu and COVID. And that's important because each has a treatment. They're just different antivirals. And so if you're in a high-risk group, knowing which one you have and getting the right treatment is definitely important.
All right, Dr. Azar, thank you very much. Coming up, she made history by becoming the first openly transgender member of Congress.
Now she's on Morning News Now to discuss her life in the Capitol. 24 days in, Congresswoman Sarah McBride joins us next. Welcome back. This morning we are speaking with a history-making politician. When Representative Sarah McBride was sworn into the House 24 days ago, she became the first openly transgender member of Congress. At age 34, it is just the latest chapter in her trailblazing political career. Before heading to Washington, she served 4 years in the Delaware State Senate. This month, she overlapped with another well-known Delaware politician, President Joe Biden, but only for 17 days. Then, 1 week ago, President Trump took his oath of office and immediately used his pen to sign a flurry of executive orders. That includes a directive aimed squarely at the trans community. In his inauguration speech, the president said the new official policy of the U.S. government is that there are only 2 genders, male and female. His order rejects that people can transition from one gender identity to another. The order also rejects that people can be non-binary. It's a policy, we should note, at odds with major medical groups, including the American Medical Association. With that, we are joined now by Representative Sarah McBride, the sole representative serving the state of Delaware. Good morning, Congresswoman. Good to have you with us. We're going to delve into some of these issues I mentioned in just a moment. But first, I have to ask, you're 24 days into your first term. Overall, how's it going?
Well, thanks for having me. 24 days in. Well, it's Congress. I wish we were working on lowering costs for working people in Delaware and across the country. But unfortunately, what we have been seeing over the last 24 days is performative fights rather than progress for the American people. We've seen Republicans in Congress and in the White House foment culture wars, as you've pointed out. We've seen them pardon insurrectionists who violently assaulted police officers. We've seen them remove protections for workers and allow for major pharmaceutical companies to skyrocket costs for life-saving medicine. So it's not been great to see that happen, but it's certainly a privilege to represent the greatest state in the union in Congress.
I should know, I mean, you've won 3 elections now, and you have always made it clear your focus is on what you just mentioned, issues that impact families, including how to bring down costs. That being said, it is hard to ignore the president's executive order signed a week ago today that targets the trans community. The impact of it is still not totally clear. Some experts in the law say that parts of it are going to need legislative approval. What is your understanding so far of the impact of this executive order?
Well, as you mentioned, it's not entirely clear the full parameters of this executive order. It's clearly not abundantly clear why the president would prioritize this as a day 1 or day 2 action. But let's be clear that when you remove the ability of transgender people to have identity documents that reflect their gender, it is essentially forced outing for transgender people when they are going about their days, when they're trying to travel, when they're going internationally in the case of passports. And so it has a really serious consequence, not just for the dignity, but for the safety of transgender people. I think we also have to be clear, though, that these attacks are politically motivated. These attacks are part of a strategy of misdirection and distraction by the Republican Party, because every single time you see them go after trans people, yes, we have to acknowledge the harm that they have on the community impacted, but we also have to recognize what they are doing with their right hand, because I can guarantee you that when they're going after trans people with their right hand, they're picking the pocket of American workers, they're fleecing seniors, they're undermining unions, and this is all part of that politics of misdirection and distraction and division.
Congresswoman, shortly after your election, House Speaker Johnson made headlines banning you from using the women's restroom. You said at the time you disagreed, but will follow the rules, adding, quote, "I'm not here to fight about bathrooms." I just have to ask, just overall, how have you been treated by folks in Congress on both sides of the aisle?
Well, the grandstanding that we've seen by some members of Congress is the exception. Most members have been respectful, have been warm and welcoming. Certainly all of my colleagues on the Democratic side and most of the Republicans that I've had the opportunity to interact with have been respectful and professional. I was proud to be the first freshman Democrat to introduce legislation this Congress, bipartisan legislation protecting consumers from predatory practices by so-called credit repair organizations. So I'm already hitting the ground running, bringing Democrats and Republicans together to work on the real issues that matter. And that's despite a handful of Republicans who are making a scene about my service.
Your reputation is that you embrace bipartisanship. That's important to you. During your 4 years in the Delaware State Senate, were there moments where you feel like you were able to change the hearts and minds of people who were on the other side of the aisle, especially when it comes to trans issues?
So during my 4 years in the Delaware General Assembly, I was proud to work hand in hand with Democrats and Republicans to pass paid family and medical leave to secure the largest investment in our state's Medicaid program since the ACA passed. Nearly every bill that I introduced and passed with bipartisan support. And I saw that when you're working on all of the issues that matter and doing it in a collaborative way, you can implicitly and subtly open hearts and minds. I saw it when we put forward legislation banning the LGBTQ panic defense in Delaware. This is a defense that some people use as perpetrators of violence to either get off or to have their sentences reduced, to say that they were so disgusted when they realized the person before them was LGBTQ that they were drawn to violence. And we had legislation banning that in Delaware. I brought it forward at a time where I was facing increased threats and therefore had to have increased security present on the floor, something that's very unique. And with that security present on that bill, my Republican colleagues stood up. They not only affirmed the dignity of LGBTQ lives, they not only declared that all of them would be voting for it, but led by the most conservative member of that caucus, every single Republican present in that chamber stood up and asked to be added as co-sponsors. I believe for the first time on an LGBTQ rights bill in any legislative body in this country. I think that's a reflection of when we work together, when we allow ourselves to be seen in our full humanity, when we respect one another, when we have conversations across disagreement, we can open hearts and change minds.
Congresswoman Sarah McBride, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
All right, now to some money news. A new company is reportedly bringing a possible deal with TikTok to the table to try and help keep the app alive here in the U.S.
CNBC's Silvana Henao has that and more money news for us. Hey, Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Good morning to you. Yes, so Perplexity AI is reportedly offering to merge with TikTok and give the U.S. government ownership of half the new company if it goes public. Now, Perplexity, which is a search engine startup, is making a revised offer to TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance. Under the offer, ByteDance would sell TikTok's U.S. business to investors, but not include TikTok's core algorithm. President Trump has said he's in talks with multiple people about buying TikTok and would likely make a decision in the next 30 days. Nearly 19 million Americans are expected to go on a cruise this year, but AAA forecasts growth will likely cool off following that post-pandemic boom. Passenger volume is projected to grow more than 4% this year. That's less than the nearly 8% growth last year and 42% in 2023. AAA expects the Caribbean to be the top destination for American travelers. And Starbucks is bringing back ceramic mugs for customers who are drinking coffee and other beverages in stores. It's also bringing back the condiment bar this week. Customers will have the option of using a mug, glass, or their own personal cups and get free refills during their visit. And the changes come as Starbucks, well, it tries to get paying customers to spend more time in stores. Earlier this month, it reversed its open door policy, requiring people to buy something if they want to hang out or use the restroom, guys.
All right.
Interesting. I can't imagine being in there with a real mug.
Right?
I would break it, totally. But hopefully other people don't.
Thanks, Silvana. For more on all the big storylines going into Super Bowl Sunday this year, we are joined now by senior writer for The Athletic covering the NFL, Zach Rosenblatt. Zach, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. So first, let's talk about this Chiefs team. We know they're going for the extremely rare three-peat. Put into perspective just how special this run is from Patrick Mahomes and these other superstars on the team.
Man, it's really hard to get to the Super Bowl for a regular team, but the Chiefs do it every year where during the regular season it feels like they're going to fall off, and then they get to the playoffs and they just get it to another level. Like this is a level of competence that we haven't really seen since the Tom Brady Patriots in their prime when they won 3 in a row. And so if they can pull this off, I think Patrick Mahomes has a case as if not the best quarterbacks ever. And Andy Reid, the same thing as head coach.
So, Zach, I mean, fans in Philly have to feel pretty good about their chances of dethroning the defending champs this year, especially after yesterday. The Eagles set a touchdown record in the NFC Championship game on Sunday. What else should we know about this Philly team? I mean, I look at Saquon Barkley right now, who seems almost unstoppable. Are the Chiefs the team capable of stopping him?
Yeah, I mean, you have to give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt every time. They have an elite defensive coordinator. You could argue Steve Spagnuolo is the best defensive coordinator of all time. He'll come up with some good packages to really confuse Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. But at the end of the day, I think this Eagles team is the most talented one in the NFL. It's always been about whether they can put it together. And right now they're putting it together at the best possible time.
Obviously, it's a team game, but let's talk individual storylines. Which players do you want to highlight headed into the big game?
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles, we did mention it, but Saquon Barkley, I feel like, has to be mentioned over and over again. I mean, the season he's having has just been amazing. I can't think of many cases where a guy left one team to go to a rival and that's kind of like shoved it in their face the entire year because of the way he left from his previous organization. So I think if he can keep the hot streak going that he has and he closes out the season with a Super Bowl MVP or something like that, you could argue it was the best free agent signing in NFL history, and that's no small order.
There are always going to be folks who maybe aren't as into the game, but they're going to watch the game for a variety of other reasons. What are some of the other big storylines out there, maybe off the field, for folks to get excited about?
You know, I mean, the obvious one would be Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. But for me, when it comes to Travis Kelce, I'm curious to see if there's going to be discussion about whether this is his last game as an NFL player. Like, I do think he's pretty close to retirement. I wonder how much he's considering that. And so I think about whether I don't know. Is he going to talk about this as his last game? Is he going to keep it up to the imagination? I'm very curious to see how that plays out this week.
Zach, I torture Joe by constantly bringing up that we get to see Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl now, so I really appreciate that you did that one for me. This matchup, it might kind of seem like deja vu for some people, but is there anything that could kind of make this different, any quirk that we should keep our eyes on?
I would say the Eagles defense playing at the level it is right now, it's playing like the best defense in the NFL. I think a couple years ago when the Eagles lost to the Chiefs, their defense kind of fell apart a little bit in that game as their defensive coordinator was kind of looking at head coaching jobs and was a little distracted, I think. So if their defense can keep playing at this level, like they're the kind of team that could slow down Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. But at the end of the day, you have to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs are not going to be a team that falls over easily.
We got 15 seconds. Do you dare make a prediction, Zach?
I'm going to say the Eagles win this one, but I think it's going to be a thriller and one of the best Super Bowls we've ever seen.
Zach Rosenblatt, thanks for coming by. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
And that is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.